Welcome, welcome, welcome. Stock Market Game, our teachers, students, classrooms, and also some of our Invest It Forward volunteers. Those that are here with us today that will be participating in the panel discussion, and others that are joining because this topic is just so timely and relevant to the industry at large. And we're going to come to that in just a little bit. I am Michelle Noguchi, your host for today. I have the distinct honor of running the Invest It Forward program, working with volunteers from across the US and many across the globe. We're roughly around 17,000 financial professionals right now, supporting you, our stock market game teachers and students. And we're really looking forward to getting this conversation started. So without further ado, what I'd love to do is turn to our panelists and ask them to do their own introductions versus you hearing that from me. So we'll go down the road kind of in the order that we had described. Ellen, Joseph, Rebecca, first and foremost, high five. Thank you again for taking your time with us today. Looking forward to hearing your introductions, a little bit about yourselves, and also kind of your personal commitment, if you will, to the nature of this topic and diversity in the industry. Thanks so much. Ellen?
Great. And Michelle, I'm sorry, you want me to also go into a few minutes of background at the same time as the introduction?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Sorry about that. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Ellen Greene. I'm a managing director at SIFMA, and I have the pleasure of working with Michelle and others who are involved in the SIFMA Foundation, and the work they do with financial literacy is clearly so important. And I was so pleased to be asked to come today and talk a little bit about what I do. And I've had a lot of jobs in the financial services industry, and frequently my mom has said, I really don't understand what you do now. And, you know, kind of in simplest terms, what I do at SIFMA is equity and options market structure. And what that means is that we work with our members, broker dealers, firms that you may have heard of like TD Ameritrade and Schwab, Bank of America. And we work with them on how the stock market and how the options markets operate. And that's a really critical thing we saw during COVID. We saw during what was referred to as the meme stop or GameStop event. We saw a lot of activity in the markets that certainly impacts you as individual investors or people who may be at some point going forward in your career, I would hope, or as you certainly grow up. But, from a SIFMA view, we certainly think that the markets work really, really well. Investors get treated well. And it's, I've been really lucky in my career that I've gotten to a place where I'm able to work with a lot of people. I really respect smart people who understand how the markets work. And together we're able to advocate with regulatory agencies like the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as with on the Hill with the Congress and Senate. One of the things that's interesting is, clearly people who work in the House and Senate, they have their constituents or investors in every single district. So they have a lot of interest in what we do at SIFMA, and they have a real vested interest in how the markets work. So how I got here, I've had a lot of really positive influences in my life. I've been very lucky. I was the youngest of 4 kids growing up. When I was in 4th grade, my mom went back to law school, and that showed me as a woman, wow, you can go do everything. She still took care of my traditional father, cooked dinner, did the things that came with that, but, went to work and had a really successful career. And when I saw my older brother go to Wall Street, I realized, that would be a really interesting place to work. And I was really fortunate that I had a good friend whose dad worked on Wall Street, who was able to help me land my first internship at a firm, what was then called A.G. Becker Paribas, which became Merrill Lynch, which is now Bank of America, where Joseph works. So lot of mergers and acquisitions in the securities industry. But that was a great job because we worked with companies that were going public, and I learned about capital formation and how important Wall Street is, because it does let companies go public. It creates jobs and really is a very fundamental part of our economy. So after I did this internship my sophomore year, I realized, this was something that I did want to pursue. And I was lucky enough to do another internship my senior year. And then after college, get a job at Merrill Lynch working on the new issue desk. And Michelle, we talk about diversity here. And one of the things that struck me on this very large trading floor was a lot of men and very few women. And, regardless of that, I still had this can-do attitude. But, sometimes circumstances are out of our control. And when the markets crashed many years ago in 1987, I learned a really valuable lesson, because the one person from my group and my level that they kept was the person who knew how to, and you can laugh, who knew how to do the computer programs that needed to be run. Nobody had those skills at the time. So after I left, I went and I was fortunate. I got an MBA at NYU, and, education has been something that's so important. But, once I came back into the workforce after school, having that opportunity at Merrill Lynch continued to open a lot of doors. And I spent 20 years at the American Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, which was really a wonderful experience, working both with listed companies, big biotech companies like Biogen, also then working on the trading side with broker dealers, which is more related to what I do today. But I think, the important takeaway is my job, my career evolved a lot, but I was always open to new ideas. And I think, something that I learned was that, it's so important to keep your head down, work hard, don't get distracted by the noise that you hear around you, but just really do what your job is and really be the best at that. And it's always going to open new opportunities. And I think that you have to learn to be so flexible. You may not be expecting something, but, being open to new things, I think serves people well. And, sometimes you may find that you don't look like everyone else in the room. I know that this still happens to me even at this stage of my career, but not something that should ever be anything that is an impediment, because we all really work hard. And at the end of the day, I think that's really what we're valued for. So Michelle, I'll pause there. I spoke a few minutes.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we're going to hear some kind of overarching themes coming through these discussions. Joseph, I'll turn it to you for an introduction next.
Yes, and Ellen, thanks for that. I really have to emphasize the part that she mentioned, which is no matter who you are or where you come from, focusing on your work and what you're doing is really key. And that was my saving grace. Similar to many of you, actually, when I was in school, I never really heard the word stockbroker. I was always told you could be a lawyer, you could be a financial, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, all these other careers, but I never really was pitched to consider a financial career. And today, I work for Bank of America. I'm a vice president in portfolio management. I'm one of the few bilingual portfolio managers on the West Coast. And this is why I'm here, to try to motivate people with diverse backgrounds, whatever you may identify with or have an affinity with, that there's a place for you at these banks and these broker dealers now. We're really opening it up because we want diversity, because we want our teams to look like our clients. We want them to resonate with them. And that's what we're looking for today. So I want you to consider a career in investment management later on in the road when you're thinking of college. And by the way, you don't have to like math. I wasn't that great at math when I was in your age, to be honest with you. I thought I actually was bad at math until I found one teacher who said, "You're not bad at math, you just need glasses." And she sat me in the front instead of the back. And when I was able to see the numbers, I was able to realize that I wasn't bad at math. I actually really just needed glasses. And once I got into math and I realized that I could, it was a whole different language, I found my passion. So a big thank you to all the educators out there that see the individual students and recognize them for whatever adversities they may be dealing with and helping them along the way, because certainly someone helped me along my way. Beyond that, my day-to-day is just really trading, what you would imagine a stockbroker to do. I wake up in the morning, first thing, I look at the first thing I actually do is I meditate for a few minutes just because I need to get myself in this mindset. But after that, I look at the market, I see where the news is. I actually check the market at night internationally. I want to know where Asia is and where Europe is going. And then I check it again when I wake up. And then I start trading. Most of my trades are queued up. I already know the plan. I'm just looking to see the specific numbers to execute. And then right after that, I go into meetings, whether they're client meetings or internal meetings. They're just really scattered between research, client meetings, compliance, and also training my team. I have a lot of interns and a lot of new staff, and just teaching those college graduates the ropes, including other topics that you would not guess, like trust structure, a credit structure, things that are outside of my role, but I have to understand how they play into my role. So with that, I'll let Rebecca or Michelle take it from there.
Thanks so much, Joseph. Great overview again. And one of the things that I really appreciated in the way the panel came together is something that Rebecca is going to highlight. So you've heard from Ellen and Joseph about their roles in the industry, which might be the more traditional ones you think of. And Rebecca is going to bring us another take on that. Rebecca.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, everybody. So like Michelle noted, my name is Rebeca Salgado. I work for TIAA, which basically stands for Teacher Insurance and Annuity Association of America, where we actually provide financial services for the academic, research, medical, government fields. We are over a 100-year company, was founded in 1918 by Andrew Carnegie. I am the head of Agile Transformation for Human Resource Department, which, like Michelle noted, this is a little bit of a different spin from working in the financial industry. I've been working with the financial industry since I finished college. And it's been more in what we call the back end, so it's not more as upfront like Joseph and Ellen working with clients, but I'm more on the business side, right, running the actual companies. With this particular role, I am focusing, and again, in HR department, and I am just looking into changing a little bit of the way that we actually deliver products and services that that is going to help our associates, right? So our internal employees, right? It's how we're actually supporting them to them do their day-to-day jobs. So it's very, very, very interesting. Being able to do this, I started my career with HSBC back in Portland, Oregon, and I just been progressing through the different banks, right? Credit cards, mortgage, and here at TIA, as I mentioned, we are focusing on financial services and financial products and focusing on retirement. So once you actually finish working and you're looking into retiring, we're going to be providing you with services about how you actually going to continue supporting yourself, right, with money once you stop working. So very, very important. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that, how it's important for you guys to start thinking about it. Not that some of you're not at that age, but as you start going into the workforce, it's going to be something important for you to make sure that you start saving, right? That you are thinking about your products that they might be available to you either through the market or through your employee for you to actually start putting some money aside for when you actually start reaching that retirement age. For today's topic, diversity. As you see, I'm of Latin origin. I'm originally from Mexico, and it is going to be important, and we're going to be highlighting it today, right? It's just going to help you bring a little bit of a different way of looking at things. Just like you may be looking into getting different products, it might be at the end, like let's say potato chips, but you might like different brands. It's also important to be having that diversity and that inclusion within the workplace, because it's going to allow you to better understand what's out there, right? So like it was mentioned, is like we want to make sure that our workforce is reflecting that diversity is going to bring you different ideas, is going to bring you different ways of thinking. So very, very important for you guys to start taking that into consideration.
Thanks so
Michelle?
much, Rebecca. Again, great overview. I think we're going to stay on that industry front, kind of that overarching. So Ellen, I'm going to turn to you kind of as the representative from SIFMA, which serves as kind of the voice and the advocate for the industry, to really maybe give some comments on why diversity, dovetailing right naturally on what Rebecca's comments were, why diversity has become really risen to the top of the priorities from the industry. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know from a SIFMA perspective, diversity is something that's critically important. It's a priority for our board. And, I think as an organization, certainly make every effort, whether it's in our staffing, whether it's in the conferences and looking for speakers. We certainly want to make sure that we're representative of who the industry's clients are, which is really everybody on this phone, whether you're an individual investor, whether you're in a pension, and you maybe, if you're in California or other places with Rebecca's company, whether you're investing in mutual funds. I mean, it's important that we as an industry are representative of what our greater population looks like. And I think, unfortunately, there's still some work in a lot of parts of the industry that needs to be done. I think there are areas like legal and compliance, which have been very, integrated well. I think there are a lot of women there. But I think when you get into other aspects, sales and trading, investment banker, I think it, potentially becomes more challenging. I look at a lot of things from the perspective as a woman, and was struck recently where in the equity market, somebody made a comment, a lot of women go to the exchanges where they have more predictable work hours. But, regardless if we're talking about men or women, I think that when we're coming together, we do need that diversity, because that diversity allows us to have a lot of different perspectives, and it makes us a lot smarter when we think about things. We talk about a lot of really complex topics. The markets really work well, but when we talk about their underpinnings, they're incredibly complicated with a lot of rules and regulations that dictate how, a broker dealer or an exchange like the New York Stock Exchange can behave. And I think having all of those different thoughts come into the conversation allow us to be much more thoughtful in the recommendations that we're making.
That was really a great overview, I believe. And again, regardless of demographic, if you will, whether that's on a gender front or a racial front or other, the industry is making a concerted effort. And we really believe you, our stock market game teachers and students, will be part of that future, will be part of building the pipeline. The industry itself, and Joseph, maybe I'll turn this one over to you, wealth managers in particular and FAs are retiring at a pace that far exceeds those that are coming up through the ranks. So in terms of opportunity for our students to really be thinking ahead and looking at the industry as a place that it might land for them. So maybe Joseph and Rebecca, I might take it down now from that kind of industry perspective to your own individual firms, your individual efforts that I both know you are so closely attached to really focus on those issues or those themes of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Joseph, I'll tee you up first.
Yeah, sure. I recently went to the largest Latino professionals conference in San Diego, Latitude. President Obama was there and a few other dignitaries, and they were talking about the fact that it's just basic economics. Latinos are a growing demographic in the United States. They're going to be part of the workforce that is leading the next economy. Latinos in aggregate are right now the 5th largest economy in the world. So just by those numbers alone, we know that there's going to be an excessive need for this specific group, not to mention Asian, African American, Southeastern Asian, and all the other diverse groups. There's going to be opportunity growing because of the amount of people that are retiring. At Bank of America, we've really created committees and teams to really tackle both the external goals of diversity and internal. That is to say that we're clearly working to make sure that our clients are serviced in their language with the resources that they need based on their affinities or their cultures. And similarly, internally, it's about building that associate to be ready for that service. So the opportunity is there. Right now, we are creating the next generation of this, and I'm happy to be a part of it as part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee within the Private Bank of B of A. But also beyond that, the future of that is going to be the people listening to this call. And what that's going to be defined for and as is going to be up to you guys. So really, when I'm talking to you about the future, it's really going to be what you're going to be walking into when you start your jobs in investment management or banking. And from there on, it's going to be up to you to decide what the next generation of leaders are going to look like and what they're going to be offering the needs of our clients.
You couldn't, again, have provided a nicer segue over to Rebeca and her own effort. So Rebeca.
Thank you. Yes, very similar to Joseph, right? So we have a big campaign. We understand the differences across women and minority that may not be as financial stable as some male counterparts. 30% of women will have less income in retirement compared to men. We also know that around maybe 40% of Americans don't have enough money to last through retirement. So what I was saying about once you start working, how are you going to continue living if you're not, getting that paycheck day to day? You need to be thinking about, that retirement and plan for retirement. And then, so, here at TIAA, we want to make sure that we are educating, right, the population, the growing population, like Joseph was saying, Latinos, right, for them to understand, right, SIGMA does a really good job, right? I love the financial literacy that it provides to you guys, to the students, to really start understanding, right, these products, what does it mean to be financial health, have good financial health. If I need to start saving, when do I start saving? How much do I start saving, right? Everybody's going to have a little bit of a different equation for that, but it is very, very important that even you may feel it's like, well, Rebecca's talking about retirement. I'm way, far away from being able to reach that retirement age. But if you start, the earlier that you start planning, in the better position that you're actually going to find yourself once you start actually getting into that age. So externally, right, similar to Joseph as well, we are this year, we launched a group of Spanish-speaking advisors. Like Joseph is saying, we want to be able to communicate with our clients in the language that they feel more comfortable. Overall, sometimes in the Latino community, there might be a little bit of a lack of that financial education. So we want to make sure that we're supporting that, right? That we are providing them with the tools and resources that is going to help them get that education and that understanding. And so what is available, what they need to do, if they have, stocks, right? How do they need to be managing them? Right now, we've been working with Michelle for quite some time of doing translation of their financial literacy documents into Spanish to be able to, again, provide those resources. If you don't feel very comfortable in English, then have them in Spanish, so you're not limiting yourself just because you're not finding something in the language that you feel more comfortable with. Internally, we have groups, we actually call them business resources group. I have the privilege to be the national co-lead of the Latino business resource group here internally. And basically, we are trying to promote the diverse workforce that we have, right? We also have for women, for Black Americans, for Asian Americans, to be able to not just highlight the diversity that we have internally, but also the allies, right? Those individuals that are going to be supporting, maybe they don't identify themselves under that category, but they're allies, right? And we need to make sure that we have allies internally and externally, because we need to understand the differences that each of these groups experience and have in, through their work, through school, to make sure that we are opening ourselves to those different ideas, to these different situations that perhaps me directly I'm not experiencing, but somebody else is. So the more awareness that we have about those differences, the better communities actually we're going to have. We're focusing a lot also in hiring diversity. So even though maybe you are a few years before you actually enter the workforce, it's very, very important for you to start evaluating, right, the different companies that are out there. We want to have that diverse workforce, as I mentioned earlier, to bring those different ideas and ways of thinking, right? Because if you're leaving somebody out of the room or not have them at the table, you may be losing a lot of good opportunities, not just for your employees, but also for your customers, because then you may not be able to get a full understanding as to what those customers, that diverse customer segment is going to need. One more thing that I mentioned, from TIA's perspective, our last two presidents, they have represented the race diversity, and our latest CEO is representing also the gender diversity. And, we're still doing the first time, the first, Black president or the first women president or whatever. Eventually, we should be able to have more equality and not being able to have to continue calling out the first, right? Because when we step outside the door and we look at our communities, there is a range of different cultures, ethnicities, religions, different ways of thinking. So it's also good, and it feels good to be able to see that representation in our workforce. Michelle, back to you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. It's really interesting. I sit here in New York City, and to kind of piggyback on that, I just noticed that one of our theaters, and to your point of being the first, Lena Horne has a theater named after her now as the first Black woman. And, that was the headline. And I couldn't agree with you more that it would be so wonderful if we were moving away and shifting that conversation, because there will be so many in the next generation, or certainly that's our hope and our aspiration. We have talked about a lot of things that are within your stock market game curriculum, when we're thinking long term. And while that might seem very far out on the horizon, our single most hope, our real wish for you is that regardless of what happens post your secondary school education, you get on the rung as an investor as soon as you are earning money, that you have the capacity to start tucking aside for that long term and making that, or allowing that money to work for you, just with that benefit of time and compounding. So as we're talking about, what implications a topic like diversity has for the next generation, for you, our students, we've talked about issues around diversity, around equity and inclusion. You'll see that I have put into that chat box. We'd love to hear from you on those, but I'll just open to our panelists if there's anything that is beyond, again, the value of long-term thinking about retirement, even though that might seem a whole lifetime and might be, a whole lifetime away. Maybe generational wealth as well, looking beyond your own immediate life, but to your next generation, and having the capacities to start building your own wealth as well as that for future generations. Thinking too, just about employment opportunities. We've had a little bit touch on that, and not just from a skill perspective, maybe even the technology that is coming along within financial industry, as well as that kind of merging of what's now called fintech, the things that make it all possible. So I'll just toss back, Ellen, if there's anything you'd like to wrap us with. We'll then, as I said, end that recording, and we'll move over into a more informal dialogue. But Ellen, any final comments that you'd like to share with our students about kind of the impact of diversity for them and their futures?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think as I think about diversity, I think about financial services, I would just, really encourage you to explore the industry. There are so many different opportunities, as we've heard today. Clearly what Rebecca and Joseph and I do is all very different. There are lots of opportunities, and I think the industry is looking for diverse candidates, and I think there are lots of wonderful opportunities. Joseph said, he wasn't good with numbers when he was younger. I'm not always good with numbers, but I don't need to be for the job that I do. And I think there are so many different aspects of things that you can do within financial services that, I would encourage people to be very open-minded about it. And, it's something that's personally been a great experience for me.
That's great. Joseph, any other words that you would like to share, just that we're going to kind of capture and memorialize out to those teachers and students that couldn't make it today?
It's really a challenge that I put in front of everyone, and that is, especially the students today, is that when you're a leader in the future, 20 years from now, when you're a managing director like Alan, you are going to remember the conversations we've had today and the importance of having a diverse team that's going to bring value. It's having different perspectives sitting at your table to help you get your job done. So when you're a leader, when you're hiring, I want you to remember the importance of diversity across the board, and consider candidates from all walks of life and all mindsets, religions, or whatever, and consider them as a great candidate for your team, because your success is going to be dependent on your team eventually. And having the diversity that requires to understand the economy as it is today, the complex economy that is today, will require that diversity on your team. So remember that when you're a leader and you're hiring.
I love it. And that's something definitely I can see my colleague Vincent Young will be clipping that for certain. Rebecca, any parting words before we bring the recording to wrap?
Yes. So you guys are going to be bringing diversity to the workforce, right? So like Ellen and Joseph are saying, be open-minded. If we're talking about the financial industry, again, doesn't mean that you're always going to be working with numbers. I've done a lot of different jobs, project management, marketing, and the IT side. So you can have a lot of very wonderful careers. So just be open about it. The STEM programs, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also, need diversity in their workforce. So be open to that. When you're looking, when you're in high school or coming out of college, look for internship opportunities, right? We have programs that we focus on giving opportunities to that early talent with diverse backgrounds to come and even test the waters, right, with a company. That internship is going to give you an opportunity to understand, do I want to work with that firm, right? Do I want to do what I'm thinking that I like doing, right? Because then it gives you opportunity to just confirm where you want to go, and then also being able to make a shift if you need to make that shift. We've been talking about also, from a financial wealth perspective, just get into the good habits, right? And again, it can be savings, it can be making sure that you have a budget, that you're tracking your expenses. Some of you may not be at that age, but just like today, right? You probably should be focusing on having good eating healthy habits, right? So in the long term, you have good health and your body can last for a long time. Very similar with when it comes to financial wealth, right? And financial health. You need to make sure that you start with those early habits, because it's really going to help you down the road in the future, and is going to put you in a much, much better position, that because you don't want to be like, be short on money, or not being able to, buy certain things, or being able to make some certain investments. So start early, and that's really going to help out down the road.
Well, a resounding hear to all of the comments that have come out as part of this kind of more formal portion of our program. I want to give a special thanks right across the board. Ellen, Joseph, Rebecca, really thank you for joining with us, sharing these thoughts with our teachers and students and with some of our other volunteers.